Chapter 768, The Traitor. This chapter is updated by novels.pl. Many people felt sympathy for Zhang Yuochen and thought that he had missed the best opportunity. From now on, he would no longer be able to match any of the 9 Kunlun heirs. Huang Yanchen blamed herself for dragging Zhang Yuochen down. If not for her, he would have drunk the holy spring water. I'm sorry, if it weren't for me, you would have been able to sit on heir seats and become one of the 9 heirs of Kunlun's field with a promising future. Huang Yanchen bit her lips. Her blue eyes, which were fixed on Zhang Yuochen across the table, became watery. If Huang Yanchen had known in advance that Lin Yue might be Zhang Yuochen, she would never have let him serve as a royal bodyguard. What kind of woman wouldn't want her fiancé to become a big shot with great power and courage? It's my fault. I'm too stupid. If I had known sooner. Huang Yanchen looked around and saw that there were young monks nearby. Therefore, she had to bite her tongue. On the other hand, Zhang Yuochen was quite composed. He smiled. Being an heir of Kunlun's field isn't something worth bragging about. No matter how many practice resources you have, they're only assistants. Finding the way to reach the end of Holy Road depends on yourself. After the Kunlun heirs banquet, everyone went down the Scroll Mountain. Junior fellow apprentice Lin Yue. Gai Tanjiao's voice came from behind. Zhang Yuochen stopped and turned around. He gave her a salute with hands folded. Senior sister apprentice. After drinking the holy spring water, the holy chi flowing around Gai Tanjiao was abundant. It looked like a fountain of light, continuously gushing out from her as if her cultivation would break the bottleneck any minute and reach the half-saint realm. However, Gai Tanjiao wanted to attend sword technique conference, so she suppressed her realm. Gai Tanjiao approached Zhang Yuochen with a distressed look on her face and she asked, "Why? Your cultivation is high enough to secure one of the heir seats. Why didn't you fight for it?" Zhang Yuochen knew that after this Kunlun heirs banquet, many people would come to blame him, so he had already prepared for it. Zhang Yuochen grinned as if there was nothing to worry about, and he said, "It is already great news for the Yin and Yang sect that you secured one of the heir seats. As for me, I am satisfied to have been able to drink Great Saint Tongshan tea." Gai Danjiao knew that nothing could change after the 9 heirs of Kunlun's field were selected, so she sighed and stopped talking. Ha ha. Suddenly, someone on the stairs of Scroll Mountain sneered. "Please don't sigh, my senior sister apprentice. Actually, it's a good thing for Lin Yue not to fight for an heir seat. At least for me, it's the best thing ever." A handsome but arrogant young man slowly walked down the stairs with his hands behind his back. He stared at Gai Danjiao with a wry smile on his face, his eyes full of evil. "Traitor, how dare you show yourself in front of me? I will cripple you right now." Gai Danjiao became furious upon seeing this man. She subconsciously clenched her fists and flames gushed out of her pores. This young man was the traitor to the Yin and Yang sect, also known as Shaolin, a disciple of the Four Symbols sect. Shaolin shook his head and smiled. "Why is senior sister apprentice angry with me? After all, yesterday is history. Why can't we let it go? From now on, we are both heirs of Kunlun's field and will become the Empress's disciples in the future. In this respect, we are disciples of the same family." Gai Tanjiao didn't want to argue with him. She stomped her feet, turned into a flash of flaming red light, and punched him. Shaolin's cultivation was not as powerful as the 8 other heirs of Kunlun's field, so he couldn't face off against Gai Tanjiao. As a result, he immediately executed a superior class ghost-level bodily movement and turned himself into a ghostly shadow. Gai Tanjiao's fist landed on his transparent shadow and went through it. Then, he appeared again behind her. When Gai Tanjiao's punch landed in the air, her face became sullen. Four Symbols sect's unique skill, 7-star diversion. "You're right, it's the 7-star diversion." Shaolin smiled and glanced at Zhang Yuochen. "I'm not here to fight with you. I want to thank Lin Yue. If he didn't beat the 3rd prince of the vampires, and if he didn't give up the heir seat, I wouldn't be an heir of Kunlun's field, and I wouldn't have the great opportunity to drink the holy spring water." Shaolin folded his hands and saluted Zhang Yuochen. However, there was a smirk on his face. Everyone knew that he wasn't sincerely showing his gratitude to Zhang Yuochen, he was flaunting his success to Zhang Yuochen, as a winner to a loser. Zhang Yuochen frowned. He felt that Shaolin was a pompous person. Every time he had some achievements, he would become supercilious. A man like him would never achieve much even if he became an heir of Kunlun's field. Zhang Yuochen was indifferent as he said, I never thought of fighting to be an heir of Kunlun's field. Besides, I fought with the third prince of the immortal vampires simply because I didn't like him acting so haughtily. You don't need to thank me. From this moment on, I will fight each and every conceited man I meet without hesitation. Of course, Shaolin was aware of the implicit meaning of Zhang Yuolin's words. He sneered silently. I have drunk the holy spring water and my cultivation has surpassed yours. Even if I act conceitedly, what could you do to me? As an heir of Kunlun's field, I will not only learn from the Empress, but I will also get access to countless practice resources. I will sleep with the most beautiful woman and will wield the greatest power. From now on, even the saints won't look down on me. Can you do that? As he thought of this, Shaolin despised Zhang Yuochen even more. He smiled. I really appreciate your tolerance, but we need to face reality. You were possibly more powerful than me before, but from now on, you're no longer a match for me. Is that so? Zhang Yuochen licked his lips and smiled faintly. Shaolin arrogantly stood up straight and tall. He looked at the horizon and said, we'll find out at the Sword Technique Conference. Zhang Yuochen glanced at Shaolin and shook his head, feeling a little dull. What an arrogant man, he thought. Were heirs of Kunlun's field invincible? Zhang Yuochen firmly believed that no matter how good you thought you were, there was always someone out there who was better than you. Anyone who thought himself invincible would eventually be defeated miserably. Senior Sister Apprentice, who is this guy? Is he going to attend the Sword Technique Conference on September 9th? Asked Zhang Yuochen. Gai Tanjiao's flames gradually receded and she replied. This man is Shaolin. I first met him when I went down the mountain for practice. Back then, he was almost starved to death, so I saved him and took him back to the Yin and Yang sect to teach him cultivation. He didn't let me down. He progressed as quickly as you did, and soon, he became the most excellent genius in the Yin and Yang sect. He surpassed me and Chifa in terms of talent in the Tower of the Sword. At that time, the three of us were selected to enter the Sword Pavilion for cultivation and we consumed a large number of practice resources of the Yin and Yang sect. Unfortunately, Shaolin never respected these. After he reached the succeed level, he betrayed the Yin and Yang sect. Gai Tanjiao looked at her sinewy arms and touched the rough skin on her face before smiling bitterly. Shaolin attacked me by surprise when I was at the most critical moment during practice. As a result, I lost the balance of Yin and Yang. Though I survived, I ended up looking like this. Frankly, even though he did this to me, I only blame myself for bringing him into the Yin and Yang sect. I hurt not only myself but also my suzerain. What I hate most is that he practiced martial art skills in the Yin and Yang sect, was trained by the best masters, and gained the access to the best resources he could ever have, but in the end, he represents the Four Symbols sect and fights against us. This is the thing I cannot tolerate. Zhang Yuochen could feel the hatred in Gai Tanjiao's heart. He thought that she was indeed unlucky. She saved a man out of the goodness of her heart, but he betrayed her and she ended up looking like a man. Gai Tanjiao was once called the head of the four beauties of the Yin and Yang sect. She must have been extremely beautiful before. However, it was she who caused damage to the Yin and Yang sect. The Yin and Yang sect spent a huge amount of practice resources on Shaolin, but in the end, they brought up an enemy. They must have felt quite humiliated. Zhang Yuochen said, since he is a traitor, I will seek revenge for the suzerain during the Sword Technique Conference. Gai Tanjiao stared at Zhang Yuochen with red eyes for a minute before shaking her head. She sighed. You may have been able to defeat him before the Kunlun's banquet, but now, after drinking holy spring water, his cultivation must have reached a much higher level since he could again condense the three sects of deity print. You won't be able to compete with him now. I think I'd better do it myself. Zhang Yuochen said, if you two fight alone or have a battle of life and death, Shaolin is no match for you. However, you will fight with swords at the Sword Technique Conference. Senior Sister Apprentice, Your sword skill is not as sophisticated as his. You are no match for him with a sword. I think you should have faith and leave him to me. Gai Tanjiao thought that Lin Yui was underestimating Shaolin. She was keenly aware of the holy spring water's power, which was far beyond his imagination. Gai Tanjiao didn't pay much attention to Zhang Yuochen's words and left the Scroll Mountain. She needed to return to the Sword Pavilion in order to prepare for the Sword Technique Conference. Huang Yanchen stared at Zhang Yuochen and asked, Shaolin was able to secure the air seat because of his powerful cultivation, and it has become unfathomable after he drank the holy spring water. Do you really want to attend the Sword Technique Conference and fight him? Zhang Yuochen said firmly, the thing I hate most in my life is betrayal. Zhang Yuochen then turned his back and left the Scroll Mountain. Huang Yanjin paused for a minute before running over to catch up with him. There was something she needed to know, but she couldn't talk to him just now because there were too many people around them. Whether he was Lin Yui or Zhang Yuochen, he had to give her an explanation,